Right, this video is going to be about social influences that have to be considered by a therapist, by someone trying to deliver any kind of therapy or treatment for psychological problems. A lot of these treatments that we've developed, they affect the individual. But that individual goes home and lives in a community, lives in a home, lives within a family, a workforce that has an important effect on them, important influence on them. So a therapist who knows what they're doing is going to consider those social influences and take them seriously and give them respect. So important things to consider. Cultural background. Someone's cultural background could affect how they respond to therapy, how they interpret their symptoms, just a variety of issues that may have to be considered. If a person comes from a culture where, for example, men are not supposed to admit any kind of weakness, you might have to address that in therapy, that trying to get the person over this idea that's having, say, depression or anxiety makes you weaker in some way. If somebody comes from a culture where hearing voices can be seen as part of a religious experience, and you are trying to talk to them about psychotic symptoms that may include hearing voices, you're going to have to respect their cultural interpretation of what's going on. You're not going to get anywhere if you just dismiss them and be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You have to respect a person's culture if you want to have success. Now, other things that you need to consider: social support. Social support is the support you get from others around you, like supportive family members, a supportive boss, supportive school. Maybe you're treating somebody, maybe they need to be hospitalized because they're having severe symptoms, and their boss is like, no, they don't get any time off of work. Or their family may be like, I think this psychological disorder is all made up. I don't even think they have that psychological disorder. That's going to cause problems in their treatment. No matter how much progress you make with an individual as a therapist, you have to remember that they are going out into a world where they may or may not be supported. Sometimes part of therapy, part of treatment, is dealing with the person's lack of social support or their outright hostile support. It's non-supportive, non-helpful support that they're receiving. So sometimes that has to be considered with treatment. Now, another issue is stigma. Stigma. In the therapy, when you're treating a person, you're probably not going to think poorly on them for having a psychological disorder or having psychological problems. But there may be people in that person's life, or just people in the world on social media, out in their neighborhood, that think that that psychological disorders are funny, that are ridiculous. There's something to be made fun of. There's signs of weakness. And so sometimes you have to address the stigma that they're dealing with. Someone with schizophrenia may be very worried that people will find out that they have schizophrenia because that they know that people have, these negative ideas, these negative stereotypes. They've been influenced by horrible depictions in the media and stuff like that. And so a therapist cannot pretend that, stigma doesn't exist outside of the therapeutic setting, that this person, part of the problems they're having, part of the problems they might be having in maintaining their progress even, may have to deal with the fact that they have to deal with this stigma. All right, so all of these are important social influence to consider. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is when we talk about treatment, sometimes you involve more than one person. All right, we've been typically focusing on individual treatments of some sort, but you may be familiar with the fact that that's not always how things are delivered. So, group therapy exists. All right, what's group therapy? More than one person treated at a time, right? All right, so this is a form of psychotherapy where one or more therapists treat a number of people in a group setting. Now, a group therapy is different than a support group, because group therapy, you've got a therapist, you've got at least one therapist there who moderates. In a support setting, you may not have a therapist there. It may just be fellow people who have a particular problem, experience, condition. And so there is that difference. With group therapy, there is a therapist there. They are doing therapy, but more than one person is there. You have group participation. You have the benefits of seeing other people who might have similar experience to yours. You also have potential problems that sometimes the other members of the group may misbehave and not give good positive feedback, or maybe not respect confidentiality and things like that. But the therapist is meant to keep that in check and remind people of how they're supposed to behave for group therapy. Now, family therapy. Sometimes people go to family therapy. Why would you go to family therapy? Well, the idea with family therapy is any one individual's problems may reflect problems in the family system, and they affect other family members. So sometimes it's beneficial to get the whole family in there and address the family system, not just that one person's individual symptoms. So family therapy focuses on the unique interactions of the family unit. So then they can address things like, do you always insult each other so much? Do you always completely dismiss what your child is saying when they try to describe their emotions? Do you feel comfortable telling your mom how you feel? You can address those things, and those things can help the individual and the family. Now, couples therapy. Who goes to couples therapy? Well, couples, right? It doesn't have to be for romantic couples. You can have roommates. Best friends can go to couples therapy. Typically, we think of it for romantic partners. And so this is people involved in relationships who are experiencing distress. They want to learn how to be a better, more functional couple. All right, one problem with couples therapy is it works best if you start early, if you start to address, problematic dynamics early on. But most people wait until they have severe problems before they get couples therapy. That's one huge issue, is a lot of couples therapists are meeting people who have pretty well entrenched problematic relationship dynamics. And so, so it would be better if people got couples therapy earlier. And maybe they don't because of stigma, right? But a lot of people wait until things are really extremely bad before they get their couples therapy, and it's really hard to undo some of that stuff when it's been going on for a long time. All right, and then also I mentioned support groups. I just want to mention, because sometimes students in class, they'll say, hey, what about Alcoholics Anonymous? Where does that fit in here? Technically, that is a support group. When you go to AA, and I have been to AA, not as an addict, but as someone going with other people. And so I have had the experience of going to AA, and different people get together. It's organized as sort of this community group. One advantage of AA, it is free. Some people like AA because of that. But you don't have a therapist running things. You might have a group leader of some sort, someone who's been going for a long time, but you don't have a therapist running the group. Now, sometimes students, they want to know, well, what's the research on AA? How effective is AA? I cannot tell you that because AA does not allow research. They don't allow data collection. The reason that they give is because of the anonymous part, is that if they do any kind of research, they're worried that they would violate the promise of anonymity. So we don't have research on the effectiveness of AA, but that would count as a support group, and many people like it, like I said, because it's free. All right. All right. Now, I'm just skipping through here. Yes. All right. Next thing to talk about is therapy effective? We hope so, right?